A lot of interesting issues are brought up in this case regarding privacy, one of which is the appropriateness of binding athletes in a high school setting to these sorts of pledges that they make. How do we apply those pledges? How do we understand whether or not the person has violated their pledge? The privacy issues are the things that we're focusing on in this course. And generally speaking, we've talked about this before, there is a presumption in favor of privacy from all of the main approaches to ethical decision making. This is because, from a utilitarian perspective, respecting privacy, John Stuart Mill would say, is something that in the long term tends to promote the greatest amount of happiness in a society. From a deontological perspective, privacy is something that any rational autonomous being would want, because only if we have privacy can we direct our actions in a way that is free from outside interference. And so we obviously want to respect privacy for that reason from a deontological perspective. Of course, breaking the bonds of privacy, generally speaking, is something that we could not rationally will to be done to us. And then, of course, from a teleological perspective, privacy is essential because we are made in such a way that we have a limited number of very close relationships. We work out our issues, our struggles, our concerns in the context of those close relationships. That is the way in which we thrive as human beings. When that information is shared with others, then it breaks down the core foundation of good quality relationships, and those are the foundation of a flourishing community. So again, we have a presumption in favor of privacy. Now, the more rational autonomy one has, the more of a right one has to privacy. And the reason for this is, if you don't have full rational autonomy, then you need someone else who has rational autonomy to step in and to protect you. So let me talk about a different kind of case from the case study that we talked about in the forums. To what degree is it right for a parent to look at a child's emails, or to look on their phone to look at their texts, or to look on their Facebook posts and that sort of thing? I think for almost all people, their answer differs based on the age of the child, right? And of course, if a child's very young, most parents would not even allow them to have a cell phone or any kind of private form of communication or interaction with the internet. And the reason why we have this distinction with regards to age is, generally speaking, when children are very young, we make all decisions for them in order to make sure they're safe. As they get older, if they're going to be developing into a completely flourishing, successful adult, then they need to learn to make wise decisions for themselves. This means that as people grow older, we need to give them more space. They need more autonomy and less interference. And so one way of thinking about these kind of cases with regards to parents and children has to do with the degree of rational autonomy that the child has at their stage of development. And I've talked to parents in class and students who will be parents, and their viewpoints on this kind of issue tend to fall into two different categories. On the one hand is the parent who is so concerned about the safety of their child and the development of their minds that they don't want them exposed to anything dangerous. And so those parents will either not allow them to have access to a cell phone or to the internet, or if they do, they will regularly check up on them. Give me your cell phone, let me see your texts, I want to see your browser history, and that sort of thing. On the other extreme, I have students who think that a parent should not interfere with the privacy of their child at all, as long as there are no telltale signs that something's going wrong. And so these parents have decided they will respect the autonomy of the child unless, grades start slipping, the child starts acting strangely, and that sort of thing. I find this to be a very personal kind of decision, and I have a way of approaching this, but I certainly understand that people are on both sides of this spectrum. What I think that most people hold in common is the idea that as a child develops, as they grow in rational autonomy, then we should give them more respect and more privacy. So it's very different to consider how to interact with a 10-year-old versus an 18-year-old. At some point, children have to raise themselves. At some point, they have to make their own decisions. They have to make their own mistakes and learn from them. And what I've found to be the case in these kinds of questions is that most people believe that as rational autonomy increases, that parental oversight should decrease. Until you get to the point where your child's an adult and they do all the things you used to do for them, they do for themselves.